This is a review for the SourceFed Movie Club on the movie Airplane, which came out in 1980. It was part of that era of films in which they knew how to do parodies correctly. You had movies like Airplane and Airplane 2, but also Naked Gun, Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, that genre of films, which Hollywood can't do anymore for some reason. But let's talk about Airplane. Now, this movie's hilarious, and even if you've seen it 100 times like I have, you still find yourself laughing at all the jokes even though you know them by heart. It's just that well done. As good as this movie is, there are some negative aspects to it, one of which being that it's a little racist. Obviously it was made before the politically correct machine rolled through Hollywood, because we do see some racial stereotypes. One of which being that every black person is good at basketball. We see a Japanese soldier committing seppuku and an Indian man self-immolating in response to Ted Stryker's long and monotonous monologue on his failed relationship with Elaine. So even if there are a few of these stereotypes in the film, we can kind of gloss over them because there's no real mean intention there, and it's really kind of the language of the time. Now, there are a lot of things this movie did right, one of which being it could deliver both the big humor and the little humor equally well. And by big humor, I mean things like those very deliberate jokes, the line, they're coming in off instruments, and you cut to the cockpit and you see the crew playing a bunch of musical instruments. Yeah, it's kind of this corny, obvious joke, but you find yourself laughing every time. Another example would be that fight scene in the seedy bar, that dive bar, and then somebody's head goes into a jukebox and they start playing the Bee Gees, and suddenly the dive bar turns into a disco. It's hilarious. And by little humor, I mean those kind of little jokes, the sides that you kind of have to be paying attention to get sometimes, like the public announcements at the airport. No, the white zone is for loading and unloading only. There's no parking in the red zone. Or at the dive bar again, when Ted first sees Elaine and he asks the guy next to him to pinch him, and that guy kind of looks at him like, oh, he's one of those kind of sailors, and he just sidles off. Stuff like that, which is, really funny. One of the other things I think we have to give this movie credit for is the casting, particularly Lloyd Bridges and Leslie Nielsen and Peter Graves, who were all serious actors. They didn't do comedy roles, and they throw them into this very zany movie. And it's not just so they can give the deadpan delivery, although they do that quite a bit, but they also get thrown into these very silly situations and doing these silly kind of things. And the humor works very well. Leslie Nielsen conducting a gynecological exam in the middle of the airplane. Peter Graves acting like this big pedophile. It just kind of works. It was, I think, a big risk for the filmmakers, and it panned out. So yeah, I grew up watching this movie. I love it. It's one of the great comedy classics. It's one of those that you can start watching at any point in the film. You don't have to watch start to finish, because basically you're not watching it for the plot line anyway. You're watching it for the jokes. And even though you've seen it 100 times and the jokes are familiar, you still end up laughing each and every time because it's just that funny. That's my review of the movie Airplane for the SourceFed Movie Club. Keep on doing the things you do, and I will see you later.